All right, another rematch here. We see the New York Giants versus the Washington football team. Only a couple weeks ago, these guys faced. This time it is in Washington. New York Giants actually played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pretty tough on Monday night. Washington actually looked to start coming to form before they went on bye week. Kyle Allen looking better for this team than Dwayne Haskins was doing. Not that he's a great quarterback by any means, but he's giving this team a little bit more comfort and solace. This is a team with a pretty decent defense, and I think they're going to end up having a pretty decent week here against their division rivals. Washington is still fighting to stay in competition in the NFC East, which isn't hard these days, but look for Washington to make a push down the stretch to potentially take the NFC East. So I think this is a really important game for them. The Giants have been kind of floundering overall as an organization, so I think Washington ends up being the better team in this matchup, especially at home. Very low over-under, not expecting to see a lot of scoring in this game. 43 points, similar to the last time they played. A pretty low-scoring game. Washington is favored by 2.5 points. I think that's part of the home team advantage there, but I could definitely see Washington winning by a much bigger margin. I'd be banking on that this week. The Giants' defense has been pretty average over the course of the season and over the last 5 weeks. They've been able to keep quarterbacks, been above average there. Their weakness has been in the running game, and they've been really average against receivers and tight ends in terms of scoring allowed, whereas Washington has actually still remained the best team at locking down opposing receivers for fantasy purposes. It doesn't mean that there aren't games where fantasy receivers can go off. It's just as a whole, this team has been pretty good at slowing receivers down, not so much tight ends and running backs. But as we've seen thus far to this point, Evan Engram has yet to actually have a decent game against Washington. So I feel like with the Giants, you kind of have to take these stats with a grain of salt. I wouldn't be happy starting Evan Engram just because he's yet to do it against Washington. They just seem to have his number for some reason. So in terms of who we're starting for the Giants, I would still start Shepard and Slayton over Evan Engram, even though Washington's strength does seem to be in their corners here. Shepard has been getting targeted like crazy ever since coming back, and he's looked like the clear best player on this offense. So I'm not going to be benching him anytime soon, especially in PPR. And Slayton is a little bit more of a desperation play, but he does always give you the chance to go off for 120 yards and 2 scores. So anytime a guy gives you that potential, especially with the amount of injuries and guys on COVID IR this week, I think Slayton is definitely worthy of a start. Both the defenses will be a good start again here at this point. Obviously, Kyle Allen and Daniel Jones could have a turnover fest trying to see who can out-turnover the other guy. Now, Wayne Gallman, Devonta Freeman was just ruled out, so I think Wayne Gallman is, depending on need, depending on how deep your league is, I think he could be an okay start. He's the guy getting the goal line carries for the most part. He's involved in the passing game, even though Dion Lewis is there. And honestly, he's looked better than either Dion Lewis or Devonta Freeman has up to this point. Washington's strength is not necessarily in their run defense, although it's not bad. It's above average. I think Wayne Gallman, you could talk me into starting him if you're in a deep enough league, if you have injuries or bye weeks to contend with. He's just on the outskirts of my top 24, so that's why he's in my second guess category, but you could talk me into it. Whereas Evan Engram, as we mentioned before, this should be a good matchup for him, but he historically has not performed well against Washington, so I'm just going to avoid him if I can. On Washington's side, the Giants' weakness does seem to be in their run game. I think Antonio Gibson is a great play. Terry McLaurin is matchup proof at this point. And Logan Thomas, a lot of people haven't been paying attention to him. He had a lot of hype coming into the season, had a touchdown in the first week, and then basically had like 4 or 5 games in a row where he was complete garbage for fantasy. People kind of wrote him off. But as Kyle Allen has kind of gotten established in this offense, he's become the clear number 2 target for him there because there hasn't been any other receivers that have really stood out or taken that step forward to be the opposite receiver there for Terry McLaurin. Logan Thomas has kind of stepped up, and he's been finishing second in targets, at least among receivers in this offense. So if you're looking for a tight end this week, he might be on your waiver wire. I think Logan Thomas is a great start and someone that you might honestly be able to ride the rest of the season. This team is going to continue to rely on him, and I think Washington will be competitive as we go down the stretch. So I think Thomas could be an every week start going forward. As we mentioned, Washington's defense is one of the best starts this week. The Giants are always prone to allow a few sacks, potentially fumbles or pick sixes. I think this is a great start for both of these defenses. J.D. McKissic, probably a very similar play to Wayne Gallman at this point. Gibson is getting more of the touches, but it's pretty close to 50-50. McKissic could end up getting being the guy that gets the red zone carries and might end up with a touchdown. So you always run into that situation when you have these 50-50 splits. I think Gibson is the far more talented running back, but based on volume alone, you might be able to talk me into playing McKissic if you need to. It's just not someone I'm excited about starting. And I think Washington wins this game. It should be close, but I think they'll end up winning 24-20.